Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Stephen Weideman. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Walter Percival Holland, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and students on behalf of Ryan Catholic College visiting from Curwen, Queensland. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Walter Percival Holland. Walter Holland was born on the 27th of December 1877 in Brisbane. He was one of 10 children born to merchant businessman Julius Holland and his wife Brenda. Walter received his education at the Brisbane Boys Grammar School, where he was a keen sportsman. When the First World War broke out in 1914, he was working as a dairy farmer in the town of Esk, Queensland. Walter Holland enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 2nd of March 1916. He was assigned to reinforcements of the 25th Battalion and began a short period of training. He embarked for active service in September, sailing from Brisbane on the troop ship Clan MacGillivray. Private Holland arrived in England in November 1916 and continued his training. In December, he began his journey to the Western Front and joined his unit there later that month. Holland saw out the rest of the year training in the trenches as a bitterly cold winter began to set in. On New Year's Day, Holland was made acting sergeant. Weeks later, he was commissioned to second lieutenant, and his unit continued to man the front lines under increasingly difficult conditions. In February 1917, German forces began their strategic withdrawal to the fortified Hindenburg Line. Allied forces eagerly pursued them, initially believing that they had the enemy on the run. As the enemy pulled back, they withdrew the Allies into a series of rearguard actions and booby-trapped towns, which produced heavy casualties on both sides. Eventually, this withdrawal halted near the French village of Bullecourt as the Allies attempted to break enemy lines. After two costly battles, Allied casualties totalled more than 10,000 killed, missing or wounded. Following the bloodshed at Bullecourt, Holland was promoted to lieutenant. Soon after, his unit was moved to Belgium to take up positions around Ypres-Salient. Holland was granted a short period of leave to Paris before taking a temporary attachment with the Australian Army Corps. He rejoined his unit in time to take part in the Battle of Mean Road in September, where Australian forces suffered a further 5,000 casualties. This proved to be the 25th Battalion last large-scale offensive for that year. By November, Australian forces were largely out of the main action, and Holland was granted leave to England. He returned to the front in December to spend his second winter in the trenches. In early 1918, German forces launched their spring offensive and began making a series of heavy attacks along the Allied front. The 25th Battalion fought extensively during this period, including at Moulincourt in March as they continued to repulse the enemy. On the 9th of June 1918, Holland and his comrades made an attack on enemy positions east of the village of Méricourt. At some point during this fighting, Lieutenant Holland was hit and killed by shell fire. His comrades buried him nearby, and today he lies in the Ribe-Mount Communal Cemetery in France beneath the words chosen by his family. All he had, he gave to save mankind. Himself, he scorned to save. He was 40 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Walter Percival Holland, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.